Welcome to this episode of the Modern Day Missionaries podcast. Hey, this episode's for those of you who don't necessarily love talking about finances, but know that you need to and need some help. And we look at it from two angles today. We talk about personal budgeting, getting things started, how to work on your own finances. And we look at it for those of you who have nonprofits, who are looking to get one of those started and not knowing quite where to begin. And we're talking to the perfect person for all this today. It's Vonna Laue, and Vonna has been in the financial space for decades. She's got her MBA, she's a CPA, she's served on the board for many organizations, including World Vision, CFO for Team. She knows what she's talking about, and she loves to serve ministries and missions organizations. So we'll be speaking your language today. She speaks not only in plain English so that you can understand, but also from the perspective of a missionary, which is so helpful. So I hope that you get some great information to get you going in your financial journey there on the field. So with that, we're going to dive into today's episode with Vonna Laue. Vonna, thanks so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
It is. And we're talking on a totally different subject than we did last time. Loved where we went last time with the unexpected challenges. And then this time we're going into finances because that is your area of expertise. It's your background. And we're going to be talking a little bit about personal finances and then also about people who are running nonprofits or charities where they're managing finances. Vonna, can you share a little bit about your experience with finances and how that is intersected with the missions world?
Absolutely. So my whole career has been serving churches and ministries. I started in 1996 with a CPA firm that was a national firm that served just churches and ministries and was with them for 20 years. Left there as managing partner of the national firm in 2016. God called me to ECFA, which is the accreditation ministry for organizations. So did that for a couple of years and now have the pleasure of serving as the CFO at Team, the missions organization, as well as in the capacity of director of internal audit for Crew and InterVarsity. So I've never lived in another professional world other than this one, and I hope not to because I love it.
And we're so thankful that you love numbers the way that you do, because I think most missionaries did not sign up for ministry because they love spreadsheets.
Well, I'm a little afraid that people tuned out when I said it was going to be fun and you said it was going to be about finance. So hopefully they hung with us and we'll show that finance could be fun.
Exactly. But that's the whole idea. You are such a down-to-earth, practical person. And so you're going to be able to talk to us about finances in a way that makes sense to everybody. And with all of your experience working with missionaries and people in the mission space, what are some of the biggest challenges that people come to you with? What's bogging them down?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think part of it is just getting caught in the details. I mean, I say that if you did an MRI, you probably wouldn't even find the right half of my brain because I'm not creative. I'm not, we've got incredible arts ministers in our organization, and they're just like, that's amazing. Where did that even come from? So I know that for those people, they would say the reverse, right? They're like, what, this order and logic and reasoning and all of that, like, what's that about? So not to get bogged down, like, don't become overwhelmed by it. And really to encourage people to ask questions, to seek advice, to invite others in. It doesn't mean that it's going to go away for us, but we may have others that can come alongside and be really helpful in the work that needs to be done there.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk for a minute about those who are overseeing nonprofits, who are running maybe charities in country. Let's just say somebody just got given one or just began one. What should be some of their first steps financially in setting something like that up? So we're going beyond personal budgets now into something a bit larger.
Sure. Well, one of the things that I would say is really understand, if you're setting something up, make sure that you've got people that are around you that can help you. If it's not where you're gifted, there are specific things that you need to know, you need to be compliant with, or it can be very problematic. So make sure that you've got someone or several someones around you that can help with that. if it's something that you're taking over or you're coming into as a new position, really understand what you're getting into. What is the financial system? What's the current financial situation? Who has that information, and meet with them, have them understand, and then ask questions if you're not clear. One of the things that several people seem to think is that uh, by not asking questions, it makes us look smarter, makes us look like we know what we're doing. But actually, sometimes it just makes you seem disinterested, because we would expect that you're going to have questions. You haven't been involved in this. And so asking the questions will get you the information you need to make good decisions. So don't just rely on the information. And if something doesn't look right, follow up on it. So many times, you mentioned earlier, unfortunately, there have been ministries where fraudulent activities have taken place or there's been mismanagement. And often, if someone had just said, "That doesn't look right," what is that? They'd have asked. I've always worked with our girls, ask follow-up questions. If they ask the follow-up questions, maybe it could have been avoided. So make sure that you clearly understand the situation, ask the questions, and involve the people that you need to get the expertise to handle things properly.
Ask lots of questions. Always good advice. I'm in agreement. I'm asking you lots of questions today, Vonna. There's so much that I have to learn.
Oh, you just wait till I turn the table.
Okay, so someone is looking into starting or having a nonprofit, and let's just say they don't really have a lot of experience in terms of running something like this. And you mentioned asking questions. How else can they learn about this? Because again, I'm just picturing, like, I'm a missionary and I just see there's a lot of need, and all of a sudden I'm feeling prompted to start something. What might be some other steps that I can take to just learn about how something like that even works?
Sure. We have access to so much information now. If you asked me this question 20 years ago, the answer was significantly different, because we didn't have access to it. Like, you had to go to a week-long conference and pay airfare and hotel and conference fee registration. And some of those still exist and are really valuable, but typically more from the networking aspect than even just the information. Because now there are webinars, there are podcasts by great people. There's online learning opportunities, and that can be from a 30-minute interaction to a course that's over several weeks. And so that's the high level. Let me break it down and give some examples. These are not all of the examples, but Christian Leadership Alliance has a number of resources, either from webinars, articles, blogs, clear up through. They have a certificate, a credentialing for the nonprofit leader. And so you can take individual courses related to that. ECFA has information all the time on things related to financial transparency, donors, board governance. They'll do webinars on those, and just a myriad. Missionexus, obviously, in the missions community, has a ton of resources. So they're out there, and it's as little or as much as you want. And I would say really look at the areas where you feel like you're weakest and maybe hone in on those and go find some resources that are available there. Also, networking and asking questions. Very little of what we encounter somebody hasn't already encountered. And that's why I think these associations are great, because as you sit in a session with someone, you realize, oh, they use the same software, or they've been working on a foundation grant as well, or, fill in the blank, whatever the situation is. There are people that have gone ahead of you. And I find in the missions community, we are overall really open-handed about, we're trying to accomplish the Great Commission.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a name tied to it. It just is a calling that we all have. And so my helping you helps us all accomplish that. And I'm so grateful for that really seems to be the pervasive attitude amongst everybody. So ask people that you serve with in the field, or jump online and find a network.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up because I do think it's significant. I mean, I know when we were serving as missionaries for all those years, I don't think I was really aware of the missions community in the world. I mean, I knew a little bit about like an expat Facebook group, I think, in Peru. And towards the end, I found a missions group, or we started a missions group, but I didn't really know a lot. And I've realized, since then, they're all over the place. And there's something really valuable to networking with other missionaries because they do, like you said, Vonna, why rework things that have already been done before? And if we can keep that open handed sharing attitude, we're not competing for finances. It can feel that way. It can feel like a you know, zero sum cost where it's like, if I get the money or you get the money, I don't get the money. But it's not a competition because there are so many people out there in organizations who really want to make a difference. And we are each doing something different. So what appeals to one donor is not going to appeal to another donor. Uh, so there's yeah, I think connecting with missionaries in the space is a great way to run things past people and get good ideas. And I'm even thinking as we're talking, like Chat GPT. I mean, I know everyone's talking AI, but that could be even a great way to get started. Just pop on in. How do I start a nonprofit? And ask all
Oh,
those
I
questions. Not that you need to take financial advice
totally
from
agree.
them. You should check everything past a professional. But to get you going and get ideas, it's a great little brainstorming partner.
No, I agree. And on both of those, I mean, I would say to people, I serve as the CFO of a missions organization. I've been a CPA for a long time. When we have something new that comes up or a challenge, I can tell you the 5 or 6 other ministry CFOs that I reach out to. So I do it. Like
So
I
good.
don't have all the answers. And others do the same with me. And so I wouldn't expect that you would have all the answers.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that. As far as AI, absolutely. My caution to people is, don't be putting confidential information in there for your organization, your donors, etc. There
Yes.
is so much information that's available, and it can save so much time. The second caution is you do have to verify it. Look at the sources that it's pulling from, and when you get into specific things, actually go to those sources and look at them
Mm.
yourself. But I use it. I needed to put together a website for a small organization that we have. And I mentioned earlier, like no right side of my brain, no creativity. And so the web designer was like, what do you want it to say? And I was like, I have no idea. And so I went to Chat GPT and was like, create web pages for an organization that does this. And literally within 10 minutes, I'd cut, pasted, taken that, sent it to the designer, and he was like, "Oh, this is great, no problem. I'll get it." I was like, "I just did web content. Like, how did that happen?" We've used it
Right.
for policies. Do a first draft on a policy that way, and then make it your own. So, do consider where that research can be done, where first drafts of policies or procedures or memos and documents can be drafted. I did a job description for one of the new jobs that we were creating. And there's just so much to be gained from that. So don't be afraid to use it. Just those 2 cautions: research and make sure you don't put confidential information in there.
Yes. Yes. And you're absolutely right. I remember even looking into that if you're wanting to like write a book or create, something from scratch, if you put it in there, somebody could access that. I mean, somebody could use that.
Yes,
It's out there. They said it's not
it
likely,
is.
but it could, if you put something in there, generate something for you, that could be suggested for somebody else. So you're absolutely right in bringing those two up. So thank you for mentioning those. I'd love to even dig in there a second, a little bit more, Vonna, and ask financially, are you aware of some things that could be done with AI that would be helpful to a missionary who might be stuck in finances, either personally or with their nonprofit? Like what tools might be available there?
Really, I would use it as a place to ask questions. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
there are fundraising ideas that it can generate because there's
Yeah.
so much content that's out there. So looking at it from that perspective could help you write donor letters or donor communications. If you feel like that's kind of stagnant for you right now. So those are some of the ways personally that you might be able to. Organizationally, like I said, a lot of the communications, policies, procedures, those sorts of things, that's a
Yeah.
great place to pick up a ton of time.
I'm even thinking I've had to write some proposals before. And I think I tried writing a couple weeks ago, I wrote a proposal in there, and that was really helpful. And it calculated out, all the numbers for me too. I enjoy math, but I don't like making the proposal itself. I get tripped up by the kind of design of it sometimes.
Right.
And that was even just nice. Or I have upcoming travel I had to do, thinking of all the finances of that. And I was like, okay, if I do this or do this, could you do a cost comparison? And that was really helpful so for somebody who's looking to do some financial cost comparison, or maybe I haven't tried a spreadsheet. I mean, I bet they could probably do a spreadsheet. So listeners, you're going to have to let us know.
That's right. I was just listening to someone, I think it was this morning, on another podcast, that was saying that someone reached out to them and said, hey, can you show me how to do a V lookup in Excel? And they were like, I don't really remember off the top of my head. Just go to AI. And they called back like 10 minutes later and they were like, I'm done. It was just done. So again, make sure that you're careful about the information that you input for that to be created. But it's there, and it's an amazing tool. I would say this, I think it's true of so many things that we have, and that is, it's a tool, not a weapon, right? Mm-hmm. So use it as a tool. We don't want to use it to create problems. We don't want to create problems by using it, but it's a tool, and it's here. I don't think that we need to necessarily shy away from it because it's current culture. There have been a lot of those things over time that, became ingrained, and we wouldn't think about life any differently. I mean, imagine not using a computer now, or a car, or whatever. They were all new at some point in time. So it's here, but use it as a tool, and probably organizationally look at what policies you should have in place to govern the use of it. I was with an organization recently, and they said, well, someone within the leadership team said, we're not allowed to use AI. And several of us were like, what in the world? And that person left the room, and the leadership that was left in the room said, that's not exactly correct. We've got some parameters, but we understand the use of it. And so everyone just needs to be on board with how it can be used, and even to provide some training and give people ideas.
Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned earlier, like a brainstorming tool or a rough draft, it's a great thing to get you started, or for simple tasks. I don't think you want to write all of your donor communication using that, but use it as a brainstorming tool. Like, get it started. Maybe write a first draft and then take it and tweak it and make it sound like you, and add in personal stories. But sometimes I think you just have a hard time getting started. Like, what's that first sentence, or what's an angle I could take? And if you just use it like a person sitting across from you, it can be really helpful, and then just not feel so overwhelming. I mean, we are talking about this finance piece. It's how we began, saying this feels overwhelming sometimes. So what a blessing, however you feel about AI, what a blessing that there are options to simplify life. And that's what really any tool is. So speaking of tools, Vonna, what would be some other tools that you might recommend to somebody, either with their personal budgeting or with their nonprofit budgeting?
So that's so specific to the individual, right? So we'll talk about a few of them. But what I want people to understand is use what you're comfortable with. For some of you, it might simply be an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, that's fine. For some of you, it might be a personal finance package like Quicken or any of the online personal finance options and apps that are available. Organizationally, it's always best to start simple. A lot of smaller organizations are going to use QuickBooks, and there are some CPAs that have a heart attack about QuickBooks because it doesn't have some of the security features and everything else. But I'd rather have something that someone is going to use and use well, than be afraid of or feel like it's too cumbersome or too difficult and not use it. So I just encourage you, find something that you're comfortable with and that you will use, because otherwise it's always something that gets put on the back burner, right? Like, I need to do that. I need to do that. And when you do that, the project goes from, frustrating or boring to just overwhelming. So I suggest start simple, get a win. Maybe that first step is, okay, I'm going to check with some others and see what they're using and what they like about it, what they don't like about it. And then I'm going to pick something that I'm going to use. Maybe that's just the first step. And then once you've done that, then learn how to use it. Because I don't know about you, but I have, in fact, it's sitting over here. I have this device, right? I use a fraction of what that device can do. And it's the same way often with the tools that we have for finances. We know how to do the one or two things that we want to do. But I just encourage people understand whatever the tool is that you're using, understand how it can be used, because there may be other features in there that could be really beneficial to you that you're maybe even doing some other way simply because you didn't know it would do that. So get some wins. And then you'll pick up some momentum and it'll carry on.
Okay, so for the missionary who is, again, just getting started, because we're really kind of just talking to some of these basics right now, what are some of the non-negotiables as they're getting started setting up their budget? And we're talking to the missionary who just is like, I don't know, money comes in and then I end up spending it and I don't even know where it goes. And we're just kind of living month to month, hoping enough comes in each time. Where does someone like that begin in setting up maybe a simple budget?
The first thing I would encourage people is see what resources are available. If you're going through an agency, see what resources are available to you there. I recognize that on that spectrum, there's anything from an organization that simply receives your contributions and issues tax deductible receipts and sends you money, to the far other end of the spectrum where they'll do your tax return, they'll help you with your budget, they'll do, help you with your donations, and everything in between. Mm-hmm. But the first place I would start is with your agency to see what tools they have to help you, because they have sent hundreds or thousands of people before you. They've done this. It's the first time for you, but it's not the first time for them. So start there. Then if you are on your own, understand, get good information to understand what your costs are going to be. You can probably even start by looking at what are you paying? What are your expenses now? They're going to be different as far as the dollar amount, but you eat groceries here. You're going to eat groceries there. You have housing here. You're going to have housing there. You maybe won't have car insurance because you maybe won't have a car there, but what insurance do you need to have? So most of the things that you would have in a budget or that you're spending money on stateside, you're going to have an equivalent to that over there. So that's a good place to start. And then also working with others that are already on the field there, whether they're with your agency or somebody else, they've got a handle on just what the costs are, maybe any of the unusual items that you wouldn't have thought of, taxes that are unique to the country where you're going to be, unusual expenses related to education or travel or whatever. So utilize your network and the people around you.
For sure. I remember when we moved overseas, we met a couple who'd been there just a year before us. And oh my gosh, did we learn so much from them. They were like, here's what we did. We messed up in this. Don't you do it. And then we did the same thing and just passed that information on to other new missionaries as they came in. Like, here's all the stuff we made mistakes in. Here are the places to save money. Here's how the currency is fluctuating. Because in some countries, the currency is fairly stable, and some it fluctuates hugely. And so you have to create a different kind of budget and have a different kind of cushion when you don't know what the currency is going to look like from day to day.
Look at your finance expertise. See, just by living. I mean, those are realities that we encounter. And so that's so true. So give yourself more credit than you came into this podcast.
Oh, thanks. I do manage the finances in our house, and I do enjoy numbers. I have to say, I am nowhere close to where you are at, Vonna. But I do like a little spreadsheet now and then. Have a fun time with it.
Spreadsheets, my love language.
I know. Listeners, don't hate us if you don't like numbers. It's okay. God will give you grace. You can do it. I remember when we were in Peru, because I've always been our finance one. We had trouble with the banks in Peru, and Danny, my husband, ended up doing our finances the whole time we were there, which was so weird for us because it was total switch from how we'd always done it. And I was so proud of him. He learned it and he did a wonderful job. I helped some back at home, but he really I just understood and I didn't have language skills when we first moved there. I was really limited in my Spanish. So there wasn't a whole lot I could do. So there is grace for those of you who numbers is not maybe your first language too. I believe God will help you and you can pair up with someone who loves numbers because there are number nerds around you. I trust you. The Lord will lead them to you and they will love to share their number expertise with you.
Well, and that's true. Within the fields where we serve, there are people that may be church planters and disciplers, but they still may have a great grasp on the finances, and
Yes.
they would be so encouraged to be able to come alongside you and help. So again, coming back to that, ask questions, be vulnerable. Don't act like you have it all together when you don't, because you're just doing a disservice to yourself. And allow people to be able to be encouraged to serve you in that way. Maybe your gift is making brownies. You can feel free to encourage me in that way anytime. I'll trade brownies for a bank reconciliation. So, let the people on your team be able to shine where God's gifted them, even if it's not their primary role where they're serving. They may be able to come alongside and really be a gift to you.
Absolutely. And on that same note, there could be somebody on your support team back in your passport country who are looking, they're looking for a way to serve and they really enjoy being organized and they would love to help you with that kind of stuff as well. I mean, it can be hard for those of us who don't like asking for help, but if we're just willing to ask help, there are people who would love to serve in those kinds of ways. It's shocking the things people like serving in. We just assume because you hate, because I hate doing it, that everyone else is going to hate doing it. No, there's somebody who loves it. That's how this world goes round. We all have things we're good at and things we're not good at.
That's a great point that you raised. And maybe I'm going to go off target a little bit, but I still would like to get this in. And it's related to donor support. And you just mentioned, you may have a donor that wants to be able to help you in that way. And sometimes asking for people to support us financially is something that we're uncomfortable with. We're going through this. Our daughter and her husband are fundraising right now to go long-term to South America. And she's like, well, I don't want to ask. And one of the things that my husband sat down with her and explained, and I love it because it's so true. And he said his mom and dad always supported missionaries. If they were home on furlough, they stayed at his house and they supported him financially and they wanted the reports and they went to missions conferences. And he said they loved missions and felt called to missions, but they didn't feel called to serve overseas. And their way of supporting was financial or opening their home, or in the example that you just gave, maybe sharing their expertise. And so I would really encourage listeners today to look at your donors from that perspective, that you're not asking them for something, that you're inviting them to take part in what God's doing in global missions, and you're giving them the opportunity to be part of that, however they choose to participate. And that perspective is just such a different perspective than asking them for money to support you.
It really is. And it's such a beautiful way to invite people to be a part of your team who they would never think they could serve. Like, I love numbers. How can I serve a missionary? Maybe that wouldn't, click for their brain. But if you just put out there, hey, here's a list of needs that we have. I need help with figuring out money. I need help with spreadsheets. See who the Lord might bring your way. And I think you'll be surprised, whether it's somebody on your team there, whether it's somebody back on your support team. So if you are isolated where you are serving, I think this is a theme coming out today, Vonna, and it comes out really in a lot of our podcasts, is networking. And in networking, it sounds so businessy, but making connections, making friendships, getting to know people is the absolute best way to thrive on the field. It just is. And so introverts, hey, I'm one too. it doesn't matter. That can't be an excuse to not connect in spaces where God wants to use you and use people to bless you. So I at a certain point had to be like, I'm done being shy now. And that was hard. I was shy for the majority of my life and finally went, you know what? I'm done. I'm done being shy. I can't take this anymore. It's isolating me and keeping me from relationships that God wants me to have. And it felt refreshing to just finally like step out. And we at our house we call it kind confidence. Not
Love
so
it.
kind that you're not confident. If I'm too nice, then I'm not making bold requests. But if
Right?
I'm too confident, then I'm not being very nice. So if you can step out in kind confidence, it is amazing what God can do. And all it takes is a couple yeses, and you just light up on the inside and you realize, oh my gosh, I can do this. And of course, getting through a lot of rejections too. I'm not saying like if you just ask one time, it's going to be so easy. There's rejection you have to go through too. But there's
Absolutely.
such good things on the other side. Oh, that's so good, Vonna. Okay, so for also, I'm thinking of people who lead teams. If you can get a hold of this too, what's the potential to be able to communicate these types of things about finances to the people on your team? What might be some good ways they could communicate?
Well, having some sort of whatever your communication mechanism is, right? Are you using Signal? Are you using WhatsApp? How are you doing that? Because it might just be some small updates. It doesn't have to be a 4-hour sit down meeting. Um, just dropping something in there about, hey, pray about this financial need, or don't forget budgets should be done by this date, something like that. That might be one. Utilize whatever resources are available to you for communications. Uh, and then identify what the important things are. One of the things that I would, maybe it dovetails in here, maybe I'm just creating my own rabbit trail, but uh, we often feel like some of the things that are put upon us are kind of red tape, bureaucratic, administrative burdens, maybe is a good way of saying it. But understand why those exist and then be able to communicate that to your team. So let me give you an example of that. Expense reports. When I say that, like 2/3 of your listeners just shuddered, right? Because expense reports drive everybody crazy. But they drive people crazy because we require that you have a ministry purpose stated and that there's documentation with receipts and that it's done timely and all of these things that seem administrative in nature. And what I sometimes hear people say is, you just want me to do this to make your job easier, right? And that's how it's viewed. And I understand that. Well, if I'm able to clearly communicate, the reason that we have those policies and procedures in place is because that's what the IRS requires, so that it's not treated as taxable income to you and included in your W-2. Okay, all of a sudden, the attitude just entirely changed because it's not about me, it's about you. And we're trying to do what we can to take care of you. But if you don't know that, then of course it seems like we're just giving you busy work or making life difficult or making our life easier. But I would use that as an example to communicate to your teams. What's the important financial information that they need to have? What are some of the things that you need them to do or give you information on or whatever? And communicate the why behind it, because the why matters.
It does. And that financial accountability and also transparency is so important. If we want to be entrusted with finances, then we do need to show how we're using that responsibly. What would you say to people? How can they be more financially accountable and transparent to the organizations or the supporting churches they represent back home?
Well, I mentioned the ECFA just a little while ago, the Evangelical Council for Financial Accountability, and two of their pillars are transparency and accountability. Like, it's in their name, right? The Evangelical Council for Financial Accountability, it's there. But ECFA, again, they also are very open-handed with their resources. They want to come alongside ministries. If you're part of, an agency, a mission sending organization, your organization is probably a member of ECFA. So even the member-only resources that they have may be available to you. But There are podcasts, there are ebooks. When I was there a few years ago, I think we were up to about 25 or 30 ebooks that had been written. Super simple, like 5 steps on how to do this and 7 steps on how to do that. So it just takes all of those things, whether it's ministerial housing allowance or budgeting or accountable reimbursement plans, all of those, and makes them so simple. So that to me is one of the biggest resources that I send people to. They also have a book that comes out every year, which is the Church and Nonprofit Tax and Financial Guide. And the best part is it's written in plain English. It's not technical.
Nice.
And it's inexpensive. It's a free resource to the member orgs, and a very inexpensive resource. But it's usually, I think, about 140 pages. And most of those things as an organization that you're going to encounter, tax deductible donation receipts, what should be included, moving expenses, how do we treat that, restricted gifts, what do we do with that? Those are all in there. And again, just written in everyday language, not IRS tax code type lingo, not generally accepted accounting principles. You needn't be worried. And so I would encourage people to look at those opportunities.
We love real English, and it couldn't double as a book to help you fall asleep at night too.
No,
I'm teasing, but sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, it could
with some truth in it, right? There's a hint of truth behind every teasing. I know.
Totally. I mean, because as plain English as it still is about finances, and so,
Yeah.
But I think that it still is great that you mention it, because you got to get those answers somewhere. And so I appreciate that people write about things in ways that are easy to understand. There's just parts of our job that are not going to always be our favorite. And so Vonna and I are not trying to get you to fall in love with money today. When you buy a house, there are bathrooms and there are toilets to be cleaned. And you don't buy a house thinking like, oh my gosh, I bet someday I'm going to falling in love with, I'm going to fall in love with cleaning the toilets. No, that's just part of the job. There's going to be, everybody's got their household tasks that they don't like to do.
Yep.
And so you don't have to fall in love with this, but you got to clean your toilet and you got to do your finances. For some of you, you're like, how could you compare finances to toilets? Finances is so fun. We get you too. But if it's a toilet task for you, then that's okay.
That's so awesome.
We still got to do it, and there's grace for it, and the responsibility part is there. So yes, we believe that the Lord can help you. And we're going to post links to all this too. I was thinking too of another resource. I recently interviewed a gentleman, Keith Webb. He is a coach and has a class called Money Matters that specifically is for missionaries, where he goes through all of these things from a missionary perspective, which is so helpful. So there, like you said, Vonna, are so many good things out there. So it's finding one that you connect with, not trying to read them all, not trying to do them all. Just pick one and go through it. Get some help from people around you. And we believe God will give you the grace and the understanding to do it. Because if he's called you to be a missionary, then he's called you to also manage finances responsibly. If he's called you to be a human, if he made you, he's called you to manage finances responsibly. This is a part of life. It's not just for missionaries, but it can feel a little bit more complex. But also think about it. Okay, I'm living in the US right now, and I was living overseas, and I thought it was a lot easier doing our finances over there. I mean, granted, I know my husband was doing it, but I was right there with him. And there were a lot of things that were a lot simpler too. So it's all good. I mean, it might even be easier when you're where you're at than it would be back in your passport country. You never know. God might be saving you by placing you there.
I like that attitude.
I can find a positive spin on anything.
Amen.
You and me both. Vonna, thank you so much for coming on and sharing about that today. I appreciate it. I feel like there was just a lot of practical wisdom there, and I'm hoping that everybody was able to just grab onto one nugget and take one step forward in one area. That's all it takes to get you going.
That's exactly what I would say. Like,
Perfect.
Take one step. I said it earlier, get a win, right? You don't have to do it all at the same time. If it seems overwhelming, piece it out. Do a piece of it, figure that out, get a win, and move on from there.
Absolutely. And dig back through previous episodes. I know we've done one on taxes before. If you need help with taxes, we've done ones on fundraising. This is a topic we talk about a lot here at Modern Day. So we want to help equip you with resources by connecting you with really smart people like Vonna, who get all of this and who are able to guide us in the right direction. So thank you for being one of those financial experts and coming on and sharing your wisdom with us today, Vonna. We appreciate you.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm so pleased for everyone that's listening, and just pray that God will continue to use them in mighty ways.
Amen. Hey, missionaries, I've got a question for you. How are your finances on the field? Also, are you feeling supported by your senders? At Modern Day Missions, we make it simple for missionaries to receive donations and for their donors to give. As the largest independent missions organization in the U.S., we process donations from more than 1,100 missionaries to and from countries all over the world, helping them get on the field and freeing them to focus on what they're called to do. And we also create and connect missionaries to resources that help them flourish on the field, like this weekly podcast, fundraising coaching, and our resource-packed newsletter. So connect with us at modernday.org to explore our free resources and discover how we can serve you. We're so glad you joined us today.